This video is about a dark romance book that sent me down a very disturbing rabbit hole. The book we're going to be talking about is The Annihilator by Runyx, and I'm sorry if I've said her name incorrectly. Straight off the bat, I want to just say this book was so good on so many fronts, but it also left me completely blindsided in other fronts. And it left me feeling embarrassed. It left me feeling sick. It left me feeling sick at some points. It left me feeling like an idiot, to be honest, like a complete and total idiot. All right, this is really odd. Okay, look, I'm Demi Blaze. I am a romantic comedy author. I don't write dark romance. I don't dabble in it. I'm not even really well versed in it. I've read a couple of dark romances, the more popular ones that seem to be like widely absorbed, like Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton, and that cat and mouse duet was amazing. So when I add books to my TBR, and this is a book club video, so when I add books to my TBR, what I am thinking as I am adding them is this is highly recommended by another reader who really loves dark romance. I am all about romance of all forms, of all genres. I do not care. Love is love, and we need more of it in the world. As a romance author myself, I do not judge a good romance. Like, I would never. But this book in particular, and the reason why I want to talk about it is not to review it. I am an author myself. Reviewing books is not what I like to do. And love, this may be like you're seeing a different side of me right now, and that's because I'm genuinely upset. Because if you know me, if you've joined my newsletter, if you've watched my videos like for any length of time, you'll know more than a couple of things about me. I'm not only an author, I'm a wife, I'm a mother. I have two beautiful kids who I adore with my whole heart, and I live my life for them. I'm getting upset already. So I'm going to try and calm down and make sense so that this video can actually make sense. I read The Annihilator, and like I said, not my first introduction into dark romance. It's not even my first introduction into the world that this particular book introduced me to. I guess when I'd read Haunting Adeline and Hunting Adeline, which are truly the only dark romances I've ever really read, I don't think that bully romances really count in the same, like they should not be, they're not in the same category. Like I've read bully romances, I've read alpha romances, paranormal romances, but none of them really were like this one in particular. So, and the reason for that is, the reason it blindsided me was not because the book was bad. I want to just completely discount that. This book was book 5 in a dark romance series, and I picked it up and read it as a standalone. What I will say is I don't recommend doing that. Read this series from start to finish if you are interested in a dark romance that is truly dark. But it is dark because of the world around it, as well as like the themes that it inspires, and it is extremely heavy content. Like, this is not a fluffy romance. And I know that there are some people who would argue that no dark romance is fluffy. And I understand that, but there are certain dark romances that go into some themes that just touch on them lightly, and then you can sort of put them to one side as you were reading and not let it bother you too much. But there are other romances like this one that open your eyes to a world you weren't even aware of. And that is where I am at with this book. So read it from book 1 if you are interested. I do recommend this book. I do recommend this series. I think that the author did an incredible job because she deeply moved me with her writing. The story itself was immaculately done. And like I said, I highly recommend this if you like dark romance and if you are not sensitive to this subject matter. I am sensitive. I am an extreme marshmallow. And I'm an extreme marshmallow because I am a wife and mother of 2 kids. I have a very traumatic past, but I have not experienced life like the characters in these books. And the thing about this book in particular is sometimes you can read a book and you can realize, okay, this is fiction. This person doesn't exist and this situation doesn't exist. This is a fantasy that someone has constructed. It is not based on fact. That's not true with this book though. And when I read Haunting Adeline and Hunting Adeline, it felt like a fantasy. It felt like a beautifully well done, constructed, very dark and dirty fantasy. And I didn't really think that it was based in any real truth. But then when I read this book, I thought, this is not the first time I've read about this sort of thing happening. And what I'm talking about here is that it's the world behind these books that gets to me. So the story, The Annihilator, revolves around a criminal organization that kidnaps women and children and forces them into intersexual slavery. And at first, I read these kinds of books, like most readers do. Like, this is just a fictional backdrop. This is not something that actually happens. It's not staked in real life. But it's dark, it's dramatic, it feeds the story, and it's something that happens like in a realm of life that we don't know about, we don't think about, and as such, we don't really like give it any credence. We don't give it, has zero credibility. But then when I finished the book, I started Googling. But what I found out completely changed the way I see the world. And this book was the catalyst to that. It changed the way I see parts of the world now, and not in the happiest of ways. But even though like I'm trying really hard not to cry right now, I do want to say like, what an amazing thing that I could pick up a book that someone recommended thinking that it was going to be a good time. And instead, I learnt something new about the world because of this book. I'm embarrassed that I didn't know anything about this before, or the severity of it, or the reality of it. Like, I'm embarrassed by that. But this book has opened my eyes to something that I'd never even considered being a reality. I'm going to put my notes here on my lap just so that I can try and keep my thoughts straight and coherent, but I'm going to read from it sometimes as well, just because I think that it's going to like help me get through this. But the novel that started this rabbit hole follows a woman who's been trapped inside a criminal syndicate. She's treated like property, she's passed around between powerful men, she's controlled, she's isolated, and she has zero say over her life, which is really brutal and disturbing to me. And it's something that, so Lila, our main character, she not only has all this stripped away from her, but she sees her only way out as ending her life. And that is brutal. It is disturbing. But when I read it, I assumed that the premise was exaggerated. I didn't think that this could be steeped in fact, that this was a thing that could happen in real life. I mean, look at me, for example. I grew up in Australia. I grew up with a family who had certain cultural beliefs. I am a second generation immigrated family, like from a family who immigrated here. My parents are both Arab. They came here with their cultural ideals, and what that meant for me was I was looking at a life of arranged marriage, domestic abuse, and along those lines. And I thought I had it hard. I had to fight for my freedom in a sense, where in Australia that is so much easier to do than it is in other parts of the world. So I look at Australia, for example, with rose-tinted glasses because I have access. We all have access in Australia to free education, free healthcare, and all systems that you'd think make it easy for someone to feel safe, like they can start again. Like if their lives at home are horrible because there's one or two people making them horrible, like abusive parents, let's say, then you have the opportunity to start over again. And for me, that was very true. I went through my education, and then I got a job. And the minute I got a job and I started taking lessons and things like that on driving, as soon as I had my car and I had enough money, I was out. No one could control me. I didn't have to marry a person I didn't want to marry, and I found love, and I have this amazing fairy tale life now where I am supported and I am loved and I am safe. I feel safe every day. And I perpetuate that for my kids. They go to a school where I trust the people there. I know that when they come home, I'm the one dropping them off in the morning. I'm the one picking them up. I am the one taking them to their afternoon activities. I'm the one on the sidelines watching them every moment of their life, making sure that they are safe. So to read something like this where a girl was taken when she was very young from her family and thrown into a slave-like situation where she had nothing, like no say over what would happen with her own life, the way she'd been used and beaten and broken and hurt, and contemplating the only way out was to actually just like end her life. Guys, mum, like if I ever thought of that happening to my daughter or my son in whatever capacity, I don't think I would be able to like live and like I don't know what I would do. I genuinely don't know what I would do. And I know that this is getting like a bit ridiculous and this video is already all over the place, but I just, like I said, this book sparked a rabbit hole, right? So the emotion in this book actually felt so real and so raw to me. And I thought, this doesn't happen, right? This does not happen in first world countries. We hear about it happening in third world countries sometimes, and you kind of feel or you think there are people trying to actively stop this. There are people going in and they are freeing the slaves and they are making, like, we hear stories like that. What we don't hear is that this is actually a real life issue that is happening in Australia and in the US almost every day. And it's still happening. And I'm 37 years old. How did I not know that this was happening? How did I not know that this was something that is like impacting people on a regular basis? So the part where I sort of like went down a rabbit hole was I watched a few videos to start with on YouTube, and here are the videos that I'd seen. So if you are interested in learning more about the realities of this and how it actually does exist and is an everyday occurrence, you can check out these videos and I'll have them linked in the description below. And I'm really sorry, love, that this video is such a downer. I mean, you know me and my channel and my newsletter. I am just trying to spread joy. That is all I'm trying to do with my books. It's why I write what I write. The world is bleak enough. But it seems like in my quest to bring joy, I scratch the surface of things that are like the opposite of what I'm trying to perpetuate. And I can't spread joy without being aware or bringing awareness to some of the things that I've seen and heard that are absolutely depraved and deplorable. But I just want to talk about why most people don't actually know that this is an active trade happening in Australia and in the US. Because I, at first, and maybe this is why it's taken me so long to make this video, at first I just felt embarrassed that I didn't know. But the more I researched, and like I said, I started with those videos, but then obviously went into like websites and other areas, personal stories, people's accounts of their experiences. And the more I researched, the more I realized that the crime survives because it's actually very invisible. It's hard to detect. And that's because the victims are isolated and they're threatened. They're moved from place to place and they're undocumented and they're financially dependent on the people who are exploiting them. That was definitely the case with Lila in this book, whose name is actually Luna. And it can look like ordinary work. Like from the outside, they might just look like a waitress, you know, doing a shift one night, and you would never know that they have other things that they are forced to. They might have a cleaning job, they might be working as a masseuse in a parlor, they might be like, and it's like an escort on an ad like online, and you would never know. And they rely on this invisibility, like threatening the victim to stay quiet, to not ask for help. And you pay people off within the media to make sure that it doesn't get voiced, it doesn't come out. There are very few accounts that are actually like publicized and broadcasted out into the world. I want to just say really quick that this astounds me because, and it horrifies me actually, but the reason why I say that is because when Kesha revealed that she was assaulted for most of her career by her, I think it was her agent or a producer, the world got behind her. You know, it seemed like you couldn't turn on a TV without it being reported somewhere, without us seeing this poor woman, like the things that she had to go through, just feeling forced and backed into a corner. And this is just another thing I want to talk about, but I'm not coming across very eloquent here, and it's because I am so upset. Kesha is an example of someone with a voice and power, with money and a platform, where she says something and the world is brought into the awareness of it. We are then suddenly in an uproar and we are rooting for her, but because there are other real life victims who do not have platforms, who are isolated and who are treated like nothing, like property, they just spend their whole lives looking for a way out that never comes. So I do want to talk about why this was a really important book for me to read, and why I think that dark romance as a genre is extremely important, but not for the reasons that people might think it is. So we assume that this trade industry doesn't exist, but it actually does. It exists in Australia and it exists in the US, and it remains as one of those really hard to detect criminal syndicates that is operating. And there are people who are actively trying to fight it, but it's one of those things where money talks, and there are politicians being paid off. There are people who are in positions of power who are like able to threaten others and stop these things from happening. And part of the reason why I think dark romance as a genre is actually really important, and I did write this down, so I do have to, I'm going to try and stick to my notes so that I'm making sense. But I think all romance is important because it's reflective of the human condition. It's reflective of our needs as a society. What we need from another person could be just someone who sees us for who we are and who makes us laugh and who we have the best time with and we can just be ourselves with. And that is a really rare thing. It's hard to find. And so when we are putting romance books out into the world, it's not just fluffy fun. It's genuinely reflective of the human experience. It shows us what we need. And on other occasions, like with dark romance, it can actually educate us. For me, it sent, like this book in particular, sent me down a rabbit hole that it has made me extremely upset. And I want to look at what I can do as a person to, I don't know, just make changes to change this somehow. I don't even know what I could possibly do, but I want to try. I can't, because I can't pretend that this doesn't exist now that I know. And while it makes sense that I managed to go this long without knowing that this industry was real and that it was happening, one of the only ways in which I was now able to be educated was because I read a book. That is the impact that stories have on us. We connect with the character, we see what they're going through, and sometimes it sends us on a rabbit hole. So I guess that leads to an interesting question about dark romance as a genre. A lot of people dislike dark romance because they think it's glorifying violence and it's glorifying deviance in whether consent is necessary and all of these things. But look, for me, I think don't yuck someone's yum for sure. But I think that the reason why dark romance really like thrives as a genre is because one, it educates people on what they might personally like, their own fetishes, kinks, whatever, what may have you. Hopefully YouTube doesn't ban me for all the stuff that I'm talking about, but you can come to know yourself through a book. And whether it's a romantic comedy or a dark romance or something in between, you are figuring out what you like in a relationship as well as, you know, from other partners based on like just how you want to be treated. You will figure that out through books. They teach us empathy, they teach us to figure ourselves out. And you are always learning every time you pick up a book. I fully, truly believe that. And as an English teacher, I know that. What dark romance teaches us is, again, our boundaries, our limitations, what we will accept versus what we will not accept. And I think that it's important that we understand that romance readers of any category are just looking to learn more about themselves. Most readers will read them as like some version of a heightened fantasy, like they're reading it for the drama to fully escape their everyday life. And we don't connect them to real world systems. And being that we don't connect them to real world systems, it means that the fictional world that these books are based on may actually just continue to slide under the radar because most people think that they aren't real. But the syndicate in this particular book series is based on something that really happens in real life. And we need to fight it. Like, as humanity just needs to fight this. I don't care how much money this is making for horrible people. The fact is that we need to fight it. Just it should not be a thing that is allowed to exist. And maybe I am naive or something. Like maybe I just live in my fictional Disney bubble and I've lived in it for too long, but it just is not something that should be allowed to happen in our everyday lives. So why this matters is because learning about this has been deeply upsetting, but it's also made me realize something important, that these are the kinds of things that happen And most people don't know about human trafficking. And the reason why most people don't know about human trafficking is not because they're ignorant, it's because these crimes are hidden from public view and it's really hard to actually unearth them unless someone comes forward. And when that person comes forward, they're actively putting their lives in danger. So having the awareness is like part one of the journey. Part two is what you choose to do after. And for me, what I'm going to choose to do after is I'm going to look at how I can help, what I can do. I don't know, guys. I don't know. All I know is I'm deeply upset and I know I need to do something about it. But it's really crazy how a novel like this one can send people down a rabbit hole, and that research rabbit hole can lead someone like me to awareness. And awareness is the first step you take to actually making a change. So I went into this book, and I know that this video is not necessarily just about the book, but let me just tell you, it's a good book, it's a good read. So if you are interested in dark romance, and if you like dark romance, and if this subject matter does not leave you a marshmallow who is deeply hurt and upset by things containing these horrible realities, then you will enjoy the book. You will enjoy the series. What I think that the author has done here that is even more important than just the romance behind the story is actually the story of the character and what she's gone through herself. So I went into this book expecting a dark romance, a fun read for, to cross off the first book of our TBR challenge. But what I didn't expect was to come away questioning how much of the world around me that I've never actually seen. And if you've ever read a dark romance story or a book that's centered on themes like these or any other really dark themes that you've never really considered the real world implications of before, I'd be really curious to know whether you've actually looked at the real world side of it. Like if you're also in the same boat as me, because I didn't know, and I didn't know until now, and now that I know, I don't know what I'm going to do with the information, really. All I know is I have to do something. Anyway, love, this is not the first video that I wanted necessarily to post, because I do still want this channel to be a positive place that you can come to and you can relax into. But I mean, we have to sometimes face reality, and that reality for us today is that this book took me on a journey and I am wiser because of it. I felt deeply because of it, and I'm more aware of the world around me because of it. And it's something I want to take action on. I just don't know how yet. So if you have any thoughts or any comments on this, please leave them in the comments below. I know, guys, I'm bad at this. Video was rambly. This video didn't make sense. But I hope that you can see where I'm coming from, and maybe we could do something about this together. I don't know. I will choose a new book to read off of the TBR after we select a few numbers out of the jar. I'll do it in a short. I don't feel like it's appropriate to do it in a video like this one where I am actively trying not to cry. So I will pull a few numbers out of the jar in a short and send the newsletter out soon. And we'll do another round of voting for the TBR, and hopefully the next book will not absolutely shatter me. Yeah. Anyway, love, I will be dropping another video very soon because I am playing catch up after finishing my book. And yeah, these are just some thoughts that I've been having that I wanted to say out loud and let you know this is my current mental state. I want to be celebrating the work that I put into book one, but it feels really hard to be in a celebratory mood given what I've just learned recently. So yeah, if this video bothered you, I want to let you know I'm going to do my best to try and make sure that we're looking at more positive things moving forward, but also that I just